Hello, everybody. Here we are, Frank and Stan chat, number 35, and it's New Year's Eve. And we have decided that we're going to have an annual award ceremony, maybe our only annual award ceremony. But anyway, that's what we're doing. That's why Stan has managed to get this elaborate backdrop to his image.
I'm actually in Hollywood, Frank. I really go for it.
And despite my best efforts, my as Stan would say, my cheap computer system won't allow me to download all of that. So you've got the usual background for me. You've got Stan's beautiful theatre background and his wonderful red bow tie. Anyway, we thought we'd go a little bit overboard with regard to making this event something special. So here we are, number 35, and I was looking back over the last few months and started to analyze, how many people were watching these videos, which I have to say, we keep saying this, don't we, Stan? But these were just, we decided that we didn't meet every week. I don't want to give the impression that we're
always... No, it was once in a blue moon, really. Once a month, probably, or once every month and a half.
Yeah, and I think we got to a point where we were in lockdown and just thought, let's record these chats. And and then I had the idea, I think it was me, thought, well, I'll put them up on YouTube and just see if anyone else is interested. And that was the start of it. So we've not gone out of our way to publicize these, or we're not looking for subscribers or anything like that. I mean, that may change in the future, but at the moment this is just about Stan and Frank having a chat, usually every Friday, but here we are. I think today is a Thursday. So what we're going to do, we've got some we've got quite a lot to get through today. So I'm going to give a little summary of what we've done since the 1st of May, when the first video was uploaded, and then we're going to get into some of the awards and everything, and then because it was such a big announcement yesterday, we were not going to have what's caught your eye, but we're going to do that at the end. There's just so much going on at the moment. We just felt we couldn't let it go. So anyway, I hope that we don't take too much of your holiday with this, and that it's worth the listen. Before I start, I did put a tweet out, Stan, to say if anybody wanted to nominate anybody for an award. And I have to say, Emma Ainsworth, who is a Co-op employee and a governor, I think, at Co-op Academy Parkland, wanted to nominate the head teacher there, Michelle Connor, for what she's done during this horrendous period, but also wanted to nominate their school dog for bringing joy and laughter. And
well, who won?
Well, I think Michelle just creeps it, because it'd be Michelle that approves the use of the school dog and allows the school dog to roam around. But I know that there are a number of other schools and academies that have school dogs, and I'm sure that they've done their bit as well. But also another colleague wanted to just sort of acknowledge, as I think we have tried to do, the work of the teacher unions, the head teacher unions, and the non-teaching staff unions, in terms of trying to work within the scientific evidence, and to try and act as a sort of lever on government, which I know probably for ministers has been a bit of a pain, but actually for union members, it's probably been there's been that level of assurance, or at least some attempt to push back. And also to Simon Kidwell, who's a head teacher in Cheshire, and Dan Thomas, the CEO, also I think on the Wirral Lawn in Cheshire. So those were call outs for them. But actually, Stan, do you know that since the first edition, which was on the 1st of May, we've had over 2,000 views of our videos, and that's getting on for 150 hours of viewed watching. So and we have the astronomical number of 24 subscribers, but so a small number, but a very loyal group that we know watch this regularly because they either email us or tweet back to us. So just want to say thank you very much to everybody there. Our very first video, what has been the most watched video, and I think what happens over time is the numbers creep up gradually. So but it's funny, we've had some very big named guests on our chats, and there's sometimes those big names do attract more watchers, viewers, but actually it is sometimes just you and me that are drawing in some of the bigger numbers. So there is no sort of I haven't got a theory on this.
Perhaps that's, Frank, because we don't announce a guest at that point. People come on just to see if we've got a guest.
Yeah, I need to check how long they're staying on when it's just you.
No, don't check that. Let's just stay with.
I haven't done that yet. But a call out really to those guests who have joined us. And in order of appearance, this year we've had Mike Rotherham, our very first guest, Hazel Ramika, Paul Duckworth, Isha Asim, Graham Newell. Graham's been on, I think, twice, 2 or 3 times now. Mike Claddingbowl, Jennifer Webb, Russell Harvey, Henry Morrison. As I say, Graham Newell on again, this time with Tom Trower, Paul Gerard, John Stevens, Joe Morphy, Nicola Webb, Andy Hargreaves, Andy Hodgkinson, and Ian Coulson. And then last week, of course, we had our Christmas get-together where some of those colleagues joined us for our festive review. So a big thank you to our guests. We've got lots more coming up. In fact, we've been over to, was Andy Hargreaves in Ottawa? Or
Yeah.
But in a few weeks, I think we're going to South America to talk to somebody about a football charity. So
here's me in Hollywood.
Here's me and Cheadle Hume. Okay, let's have a look then at these awards, shall we, Stan?
Yeah, let's just start by just looking at the year we've had.
Oh yeah.
In 2020 has been a really unusual year for everyone, but particularly if you're in education. No one would have thought in March that all schools would be closed for many months, exams would be cancelled, an algorithm would cause political and social stir, and that university students would be locked in their universities. All that's happened this year. In addition, we had the unpleasant experience of a government refusing initially to properly fund a free school meals programme for the most disadvantaged, and then doing a U-turn, and then doing it through a company that couldn't cope with the amount of school vouchers that had to be done, leaving heads up, I know, at 2 in the morning trying to book vouchers for the children in their schools.
And if I can, and also, you know, being able to use them in Waitrose, but not in your local co-op.
Yeah. Slight bias there, Frank.
I know, but actually I have to say, in some places of the country, the co-op is the only supermarket. And actually the co-op does put supermarkets out there because it is the only, it's like the only bank, you know what I mean? There is that sort of approach. So, and
to be fair to the co-op, they did send out their own vouchers to their academies straight away before there was even a consideration. The other thing was, of course, the laptops. And that's still ongoing. There was still another, I don't know, was it 50 million, 100 billion laptops going to be all go out on Monday? We've been overpromised a number of things that haven't happened. And it does seem that the government have been, despite Priti Patel's claim that they're always in front of the curve, that at times they've not even been in sight of the curve.
I don't think they can see the curve.
No, they're nowhere near it. And the other thing I think we've constantly talked about is leadership, and good and great leaders lead by example, demonstrating their expectations and standards to their followers through the way they behave and the way they act. And there's a quote here from I think it's Grunter and Whitaker, which is, "The culture of any organisation is shaped by the worst behaviour that the leader is willing to tolerate." And then I want to remind people about Barnard Castle and the farce around that, and the support of somebody breaking the rules. The
From,
Home
not,
Secretary.
from nearly every single, not every cabinet minister, but many cabinet ministers.
Yeah, and then the Home Secretary, who fantastically in anti-bullying week gets charged with bullying, and again no reprimand for that, so an acceptable form of behaviour, and some of the things that they've said, and it's been nodded through, like the ring of steel around care homes, and all that's done is question whether there is trust in the government and the leadership, and just what the culture is, if those are things that the leader is prepared to accept. So I think we've been in a rather difficult year.
Yeah.
And just when Frank and I thought, well, we've done the awards, we've picked out the things we want to mention, somebody comes last minute to try and snatch the awards away from others with an announcement yesterday.
I mean, it was Gavin Williams. We're talking about Gavin Williamson, aren't we, at the dispatch box? I think everybody in education, and particularly those leaders in the London boroughs that were wanting to shut down a week early, knew that there was a problem and that the problem was likely to get worse. But actually, and civil servants have been paid £1,000 apparently to work over Christmas. I'm not critical of them, but actually, to be honest, all of this could have been predicted weeks ago.
Yeah, but and also those school leaders that stayed in over Christmas, one to do the test and trace that clearly isn't working across the country, but from school's point of view is, and secondly to try and arrange volunteers to turn up on the 4th or 5th of January. I don't remember them getting a £1,000 pay rise or
no.
bung.
I think I think yesterday I think one of the themes, isn't it, Stan, is that there have been occasions when ministers have said thank you to key workers or whatever, and teachers, teaching staff, caretaker, the whole brigade of people who keep schools open. But actually there have been when they've gone out of their way to say this, thank you so much, but it's not said with the level of sincerity. I've not felt that sincerity, that real feeling of genuine love and respect, because there have been occasions, and you've mentioned this before, when the Secretary of State guard falls down, and we go back to the exams, when he actually said that there were many schools that were out there who had put through all of their children as, was it A or A star?
A or A star, yeah.
And there was this sort of underlying feel that actually he thought none of the staff want to go back to work. They just basically want to sit at home and do nothing. There's been that theme throughout that actually the profession is basically on the game. And it's that thing there that when you get to a point like we did yesterday, when you're really up against it, then you need a little bit of give. And I think there is no give anymore in the profession. I think that they have looked at that man and seen the actions of the government, and they don't trust it. That they don't know what they're going back to. When the schools do reopen, and it feels as though there's been a price paid here around it's either education or health, not both. And actually, at the end of the day, I suspect every single teacher, every single head teacher, the one thing they want to do is care for their children and care for their children's families. And that supersedes their need, their desire to actually have a child in front of them. It may be that some children do need to be in school, because they may not be safe at home, but there are many children who could be safe, who may well be safe at home.
It's a hierarchy, isn't it, in most people in education. The first thing they want is the children safe and happy, and then they want them well educated. And that's not, neither of those are exclusive of the other, it's both. But if you've got to do one thing, keeping them safe and happy is the number one priority. Then education, and then helping them support the career and everything else that schools don't give up on. We'll perhaps get to that when we look at Amanda Spielman's.
I do think, though, that the being a very effective communicator is at the heart of being a good politician. So it's at the heart of being a good leader, you know. And actually, the words that you choose and the tone in which you give out those words, you know, that actually says a lot, I think, about you and about what's behind your decision making. And I just feel as though the profession has been knocked about to such a degree that actually that it feels as though this Secretary of State will never ever be able to get to a position whereby he can gain the trust of the profession.
I mean, in political terms, he's a dead man walking, isn't he? Everybody expects, and probably rightly so, that come the next shuffle, he'll be one that'll be going back to selling fireplaces or whatever.
It was well, he was apparently a very effective chief whip, and I can imagine that he would.
That's probably how he's kept his job, Frank, for so long.
Well, that's how. Well, wasn't there that interesting photo of him with a whip on his table, which. You know, I mean, anybody, if you're wanting to reach out to your education colleagues, you know, if you think that's funny, if you think that's what it's about, I'm really sorry, but you've got a misplaced understanding about what the profession is. Anyway,
we were doing that at the end.
Yeah. I mean, what we've done is we've tried to look at some silly awards, some serious awards. So I think on this one, Stan, you're going to start, and I'm going to declare the winner. So on this one, so do you want to kick off?
So this is our first award. The Frank and Stan, they're going to be Frannies. Are they going to be called Frannies? This is the biggest education policy mistake of the year, and the nominations are: 1, using an algorithm to assess grades in exams; 2, issuing meal tokens through a single supplier who couldn't manage the system; and 3, deciding not to support free school meals in the holidays and then U-turning.
U-turning when Marcus Rashford communicated far better to the country. And the winner of our first ever award is deciding not to support free school meals in holidays, and then the U-turn that followed because of Marcus Rashford. So what we intend to do is we do have access to Marcus Rashford through the co-op, so I will let Marcus Rashford know that he has won our very first Frank and Stan award and see how he responds. Perhaps he wants to come and join us. That might increase the number of people watching.
Just a bit, yeah.
Our second award is the Best Educational Tweeter of the Year nomination. And so this is A. Jolly for his FOIs into Gavin Williamson's statement on school issues, and Charlie Maxey for the inspirational stories of the boy, the mole, and the fox and the horse, and his tweets praising teachers and key workers. And the winner?
And the winner from that is the single tweet, I think, although it was a chain, from Andy Jolly from his FOIs into Gavin Williamson's statement on school issues. Primarily because what it actually showed was there were about 10 schools in the country, most of whom had less than 10 students, who had put them all in as A's and A stars. So the statement, schools are putting all their students in as A and A stars, was technically true. Some schools were, but a tiny number. But
I would say also it's some centres.
Yeah,
and that's the problem, isn't it? This is where your technical expertise, you know, going off on one on your own without really, you know, going well off script. You know, this is where Gavin Williamson is just it feels at times just making it up as it goes along. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. Are you reading this one out or am I?
I think I'm reading this one out, yeah.
Okay.
Which is the most shocking quote of the year nominations. And the nominations are Jeremy Warner in the Daily Telegraph. I can't remember what that one was.
That was about where he said that, in fact, in effect, it was the epidemic may well actually be very useful because it could end up with culling a group of over 60s. And that was in, what, 3rd of March?
Brendan Clark MP for I don't believe in nationalising children, in defending the reasons why he wouldn't support the free school meals. Matt Hancock for wrapping his arms around care homes.
This is the Ring of Steel.
Yeah, they're just unbelievable when you see them in black and white. And Amanda Spielman saying that only recently schools have focused on their communities.
Yeah, and because of that background, we've decided that the winner, and it's tough, this, is Amanda Spielman, because actually there are times when it's really important that you connect and show that you have a good understanding. This is in any role of the people that you're meant to be leading, and we felt as though that one was so shockingly poor. Because actually, if you go back to charter schools and whatever, you know, in the 19th century, you know, I mean, they're all there, aren't they? Okay, so I believe it or not, I will let Amanda know.
Okay, that's the end of Frankenstein chat.
Oh dear. So
okay, so our next category is it you to, oh, it's me to read this out?
Yeah, you read it again.
The most ridiculous promise of the year, and we've already said we've been over-promised. We've narrowed it down to 4. First one is Boris Johnson for his back to normal, and actually it was initially within 12 weeks.
It was, yeah.
Back to normal in 12 weeks, then by Easter, then by summer, then by Christmas, and I think
now we're getting Easter. We're getting
spring. Yeah, so promise of to be back to normal. Matt Hancock for the promise of a world-class track and trace system.
Actually, I think he said that following Boris Johnson's comments about it being world-beating. So I don't know whether Matt Hancock knew that Boris Johnson was going to say that.
Well, they perhaps could share the award if... Matt Hancock again for his world-beating app.
Yeah.
That never really happened at all.
Which was
the
going
first
to be
one didn't happen.
Yes.
Which only cost 14 million, I think.
Yeah, but it was going to be better than the one that Google and Microsoft were developing.
Yeah, yeah, because we're good like that. And the 100,000 tests. I'm not sure if it was a day, but
it was a week. It was.
A week.
I think it was 100,000 tests. I can't remember. Was it a week or? I mean, this is it, isn't it, on the communication side?
Yeah, you can't.
So many.
Initially, that was definitely 100,000 people, and when they announced that they'd reached that target, it was 100,000 tests, of which something like 20,000 had been posted out to people and not returned. So I don't think through the summer we ever got to that kind of regular target.
And the winner, and we haven't got into because in effect we didn't go down the road of why did contracts get awarded to particular people, and but basically because of the absolute cost of this. For something that didn't work at all, and we could have gone down the PPE front, couldn't we, which would have been even a bigger, and probably loads of that is now in storage in Felixstowe. But actually we've decided that Matt Hancock's, or the government's, world-class track and trace system is going to be the winner of the most ridiculous promise of the year nomination, because I think there is little doubt that it's not world-class. Okay, so the next one is the most encouraging challenge to power nomination. So basically, people who are willing to put themselves in front of politicians and challenge them when they're given the chance to. And the nominations are Meg Hillier the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, who has been tigerish, to say the least, on the awards of contracts and whatever.
I think when she described their actions as ludicrous,
yeah,
that kind of brought it all home, really.
Emily Maitlis, for her Newsnight remarks on Dominic Cummings, for which she was reprimanded. Then we've got, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but the Good Morning ITV programme with Piers Morgan, who throughout the lockdown continued to harass the government, even though government ministers refused to go on the show, actually until Dominic Cummings left. And Lewis Goodall, the BBC Newsnight education and social care sort of reporter, who continually interrogated the attendance data, also highlighted the care home failures in terms of testing and PPE, and also the test and trace debacle. So, so the winner, Stan.
The winner on that, and this has been a conversation I've had with so many people who've started the conversation with, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Piers Morgan was really right on.
I know.
So there are so many people who are reluctantly agreeing with that Piers Morgan, but ITV, Good Morning ITV, throughout the lockdown, for challenging what's gone on, even without a government minister there to challenge in many occasions.
Yeah. I mean, we have said before, and that it's really important that not just for our democracy, but for good, effective leadership, that leaders are willing to listen and to engage with people who have a different view to them, you know, who actually force them to reflect on what they're doing. And actually, you know, I'm sure that's happening within the cabinet. I'm absolutely convinced that's happening within the cabinet. But it's such a closed environment that it needs to. I think the general public need to see ministers under pressure and actually holding it together, because there is a coherent strategy and policy that underpins their thinking. And the fact that they've not been willing to appear on some programs gives you a feeling that that policy and that strategy is not well put together, that they're willing to go on compliant programs where they're not going to be pressed. But for me, that doesn't do it. That doesn't give you the thinking that you need to do in order to say, and to go out of the interview and say, you know what, we haven't sorted that, we'll get that sorted. I don't want to be put in front of another reporter and be harangued like that again, you know.
But if you look at the cabinet, Frank, one of the key things about teamwork and working as a team and an effective team is to have some diversity on that team, to have people who share different views, have come from things through a different lens. And what the cabinet is made up of is people who were supporters of Brexit, 100%.
Yeah.
So there's nobody there who is saying, let's do things differently, or have you thought of this way, or the people I work with see it from a different point of view.
But it's interesting that at least half of the cabinet members are just under a rock somewhere. You know, I do not see them. You know, they're either, you know, I mean, Priti Patel, you know, bearing in mind her brief, I'm staggered. You know, the reason why she's not there, she's probably a disaster waiting to happen when you put her in front of the cameras, you know. So, but there are other cabinet ministers who are in a similar, who really have kept their heads down, you know.
Have you seen the popularity ratings though for the cabinet?
No.
Guess who the most popular?
I think it's Dishi Rishi.
Member? Sorry?
Is it Dishi Rishi?
No.
Who is it?
You won't believe this one. Liz Truss.
Oh, really? Well, actually, yeah. Well, let's not go into this. This is not education. Let's
let's move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Okay, so right, you're going to read these.
We're on the biggest fib of the year. That's a polite way of putting it, I think. The biggest fib of the year. And the nominations are Michael Gove, in supporting Dominic Cummings, claimed or started to claim that he had also driven a car to test his eyesight. Then he realised he was going down a road that he couldn't get an answer to, and tried to back out of it. To which the interviewer said, I'm just looking forward to how you're going to try and get out of this." It was a terrible, terrible fib. The next one is Gavin Williamson's claim not to have known about the forthcoming exam chaos. So he didn't know, despite the fact that we now know there were several meetings at which he was alerted to the possibility. So claiming you didn't know was at least a fib. And finally, the oven-ready deal that was, now we understand, because we didn't understand at the time that the deal was actually a withdrawal agreement, an oven-ready withdrawal agreement, and the deal was something very different, even though it was referred to all the way through as an oven-ready deal. So with those three of many we could have put forward.
We've gone for Michael Gove. So, I mean, and the reason why this does have a bearing on education, isn't it, is because it's about trust and about truth and about honesty. The sort of the without those, school communities fall apart.
Yeah.
So
well, for me, Frank, it's also don't know. Why can't people say, I'm afraid I don't know?
I know.
I'll look it up, I'll find out, I'll try and get the answer to you. But today, I don't know the answer to that. It was always the case with when they would challenge new prime minister or new chancellors as to whether they knew the price of a pint of milk.
Yeah.
They fumbled over it and said nonsense instead of saying, I don't know.
No. Well, I mean,
when I go shopping, it all goes in the trolley. I don't count things individually.
Yeah.
Oh, wears me out that they don't just say, I don't know.
Okay, the next one is the most consistently reliable education spokesperson of the year nomination. And we've got Jeff Barton at Askell. Mostly, I think there were a couple of times when even Jeff would admit that probably the pace of change was such that it was difficult to actually advise, in a coherent, consistent way. But anyway, I think he's done amazingly well in trying to keep all of this together. As a group, the teacher trade unions, and I'm going to add also Vic Goddard, the head teacher at Passmore, who has consistently been a voice of reason and common sense. I think also, because we haven't got them in there, I think the most reliable education spokespeople that I know of tend to be the people that are working in schools.
Yeah, I was going to say we should have put head teachers in there for their communication with their community.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I think, having said that, Stan,
they're now the new winner.
They are the new winner.
I think we're right there.
Yeah, because it gets back to, doesn't it, this idea that if you've got leaders in your community, you need to give them the power to lead that community. And at the moment, the government's desire to centrally control everything is making that very, very difficult for head teachers and for governors, trustees, whatever. Okay, so we're on, not quite the last one, but we're nearly there.
The most memorable statement made by a guest this year. We've got John Stevens for the phrase "counsel of perfection," telling head teachers not to chase everything to be perfect and to do the best you can, basically, in the circumstances. Andy Hargreaves saying we should stop using the phrase white working class and just refer to that range of people as working class, because they're working class of all backgrounds. Me, I'm not. I just realised I'm on this list. The government has the skill of irony from me.
Well, I think that came about with the Priti Patel issue, didn't it?
Andy Hodgkinson with "We forget the dignity of humans."
Yeah, he was referring there, Stan, to there are times when he's observed some school leaders talking about people in a way that if he was talking about his family or people that he knew, then actually, you know, that they would think twice about using those words. And I think he was drawing out the fact that if politicians, the words they use about people, if those were actually specific words about individuals, they wouldn't choose those words. And I think we've got some really good examples of that this year.
There was one on TV this morning where somebody referred to job losses, and the other person in his view said, "Oh, but that's nothing compared to what COVID has done." Well, it's nothing, but if it was your family who've just lost their job, it would be more important than, and it's that understanding. Dignity is probably the best way to describe it. Now we've got Jenny Webb. This is why we get these idiots in government, because students are not being taught to think critically.
Yeah. Right at the end of her interview, and then she went on to say,
yeah, she has second nomination. Understanding language, including grammar, is critical important, because if we don't, then the students will continue to get hoodwinked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was after a number of times we talked about the spin on the words that people used, phrases like "there is no evidence," which means nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're not asked for that evidence.
It's like was it in the last PMQs before the recess when they got the Labour Starmer got hold of some guidance from some Conservative constituency about
yeah
and it's just, you know, just talk. It doesn't matter if it's rubbish, just talk, you know, and if you have to lie, you know, I mean, you know, there is that thing here, isn't there? And I think that's what Jenny's getting at here, you know, just to unpick every word and to think carefully about what is it that this person's saying. You know, don't just take it just because they're in a position of authority or power that they've got your best interests at heart. Yeah,
well, how old do you have to be before that level of cynicism flips to the opposite? And you assume they haven't.
You know, but actually for children, that's really important as well, isn't it? Even for the very youngest, you know, that, you know, children need also to be critical about the relationships that people are forming with them.
But I'll warn you, as my deputy head said to me, what about the tooth fairy?
Yes.
Let's not have reception children being too critical and too quick. If you can't assess people fairly, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. That was Henry Murison from the Northern Powerhouse.
Yeah, and that's about the exams, isn't it? And actually, for me, that's exactly in there now. That, you know, at the end of the day, I still have grave concerns about an examination, so because I think some of the most troubled kids, most disadvantaged kids, are going to be hit the hardest here. And
then we had, is it Aisha?
Yeah, Aisha.
Aisha Hassan with 2 nominations, one for how many historical figures studied during the history studies are women.
That was her recollection, wasn't it? Of her,
and the second one, how many non-white teachers had taught me. And she said when somebody asked her that, she had never considered it previously, but the answer was none. So, you know, it was something that made her reflect and made her think. And the last nomination was from Russell Harvey, the resilience man. He said he didn't like the term bounce back, which everybody tends to use to explain what resilience is. He preferred spring forward instead, which I thought was quite a powerful way of looking at things. And
the winner of the most memorable statement goes to John Stevens, the Council of Perfection. Basically, I think it probably means that everybody involved in education, you know, John's just saying, just do your very best. It may not be as good as you want it to be, but it's as good as you can get it. In the circumstances.
It doesn't have to be perfect all the time, and none of us are.
Yeah. Right, so then we've got the most ridiculous thing either of us have said goes to award. Right, so the first one is a long-standing joke that Stan and a few other colleagues have, that Frank doesn't buy any drink.
A few other colleagues. By a few of the colleagues, people, what Frank actually means is anyone who's ever worked with or socialised with Frank.
That is completely untrue. But anyway, I live with that standing joke. And the other one is having sympathy and trying to be kind to the government, which was our underlying theme when we started all of these. Was you developed the word kindness, or didn't develop the word, but wanted to use the word kindness. I
think that may have also got in the over-promising bit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we just threw out a challenge to the government to say, you know, we're going to try and be kind, and they said, well, we'll show you how difficult that's going to be. But yes, despite Frank offering to buy drinks, which a lot of people will have been surprised at, until you think, well, you can't actually go out and buy somebody a drink, so it may have been a double bluff. But having sympathy and trying to be kind to the government throughout this last 35 episodes has been the most ridiculous thing we've tried to do.
Yeah, I agree. Also, the last award goes, I think you're going to read these out.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to read these out. This is our favourite follower of the year. These are people that have not only followed us, but have commented and said positive and challenging things about what we've done. So our 4 nominations are Kendra Allen, Paul Duckworth, John Stevens, and Johnny Mitchell.
And we are going to give that award probably to somebody who actually regularly watches our videos and also comments frequently on them. And it goes to Kendra Allen. So a big thank you to Kendra for having faith in us, because there have been occasions during these 35 weeks when we thought, well, should we stop doing them? Or should we move to a monthly meeting or whatever it may be? But I think it's people like Kendra that have kept us thinking that there may be a place for that, even if there's, I mean, at the end of the day, as I say, we only did it for ourselves, this, you know, and it's a record for us as to what were the issues that we were dealing with from when, you know, March 2020 to the end of all of this.
Yeah. I think, you know, when we first, well, when we used to just meet and chat, it was usually about the jobs. Very little of it was anything wider than things within our own immediate environments, and we'd talk about our experiences as inspectors and all that kind of thing. What we worried about and genuinely worried about when we said we'd put this on was, will we have enough to talk about? Because
yes,
even you and I going out and having a pint, you know, at the end of an hour or so, we'd have run out of things to say.
Absolutely.
And we've done.
I mean, we've said, haven't it, it's the government that keeps on giving in terms of Frank and Stan chats. I mean, it's in effect, it's a bit like, I've often felt a bit like head teachers must be feeling at the moment, where you think, is it worth planning anything? Because it's probably going to change. And I think in the first few weeks, I did a lot of planning for these chats. But then the morning or the evening before, some big announcement would be made, and it's completely up in the air. So I basically have busked most of these because there's no point doing the planning. We just don't.
Frank, I only prepared one, and then you said, "Oh, we're not doing we're not doing Catch Your Eye this week." It was the only one I'd actually prepared something for.
Oh, dear. Well, it's been.
When we wrap this up today, I sent a tweet out yesterday about school leaders, you saying, you know, do you plan, do you not? There was a brilliant tweet by a head teacher this week when somebody had said, do I plan over Christmas or do I wait for an announcement immediately after Christmas? And he tweeted, the hardcore heads are waiting for the announcement on New Year's Day round about 5 o'clock. And, you know, that's the situation people have got to, isn't they? It's getting to the point now where we're planning or worrying about things that are going to happen. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I mean, next week we'll be looking at New Year resolutions and stuff. And and it will be interesting to sort of, it will be good next week. Not hopefully, well, who knows what the next announcement's going to be, but it'd be interesting to start thinking about what the future might look like. Not next year, but the next 5 or 10 years. But actually, for me, I think that there is still this major concern about infection rates in schools. And Boris Johnson yesterday, he was trying to say the point that they're most concerned about is infection within communities, within the household. And he got himself in a complete mess.
Yeah, completely contradicted himself, didn't he? Yeah,
and
I saw that.
And I tweeted, so that's going to come back and haunt him, because there is, if infection rates are that high, it's not going to take much to tip communities into astronomical levels, and if NHS hospitals get, as they appear to be, overwhelmed, and even if we've got Nightingale hospitals with no one to staff them, I mean, we're in this catastrophic situation, that it does feel to me as if, take the hit on the economy, close the schools down, pile everybody into, I hope there isn't a problem with the vaccine supply, because I started to hear, I don't know whether that was nonsense, but that actually they can't deliver more because they can't get the vaccine, but whatever it is, if it took 4 weeks to pile all the resources you've got, you would have, close the schools down, hit on the economy, I'm absolutely convinced teachers would be part of that program. They would want to help in some shape or form if they could. Yeah. But you have your buildings, you get everybody in there, get that first vaccine in. You're in a much stronger position than where we are at the moment. I do worry about schools going back next week.
And if we're going to take some positives, we've got remote learning now is so much better than it was. Yeah. That we now can start to look at things like, how is homework constructed, because that could be far more powerful than it's been for a long time. And if we do get, and when we do get to a state of norm, we need to look at those kind of traditional homework activities, and how work done at home and work done in school link and connect. There's a much stronger position to be in for children and young people, I think.
Yeah.
When we get beyond the crisis that we're in now.
Yeah, I think let's have a look at this next week, because I think it's interesting to perhaps look at countries. I think it's always better to look at European countries to see how they're tackling educational disadvantage, and where are they putting their resources, because there are some countries that appear to be bucking the trend and doing things slightly differently. So it'd be interesting to have a chat about that next week. I want to thank every single person who works in our schools, who supports schools in whatever way, and that goes down to DFE, civil servants and whatever, who I know will have been working their little socks off trying to make the best of this. I really have, I am proud to be a teacher, or to have been a teacher. I've never felt more proud of the profession than I do now. And, I've got 4 family members who are primary teachers, and I'm in awe of what they do and how they've responded to all of this. So thank you from Frank.
Yeah, and from me, and to wish everyone a happy new. I don't know if you stayed up late last night, Frank, to welcome in the new tier, but tonight it's. I don't know. We were saying before, talking before. I don't know if I'll even stay up tonight. It's not. Well, it's not the occasion it normally is.
No. Well, we normally meet up with a couple of friends. It's like a tradition that we have, but obviously we're not doing that. But I did check to see whether Jules Holland was on, and he's on. So I think Arlen and I are going to be having getting a takeaway from our Italian, bringing it back here, and then watching a bit of Jules.
Well, we'd planned to go a walk today to compensate for not being able to go out tonight. And of course, yesterday that was skybosh. So we can't even.
Well,
6 of us can't even go out for a walk.
and also, I don't know about you, but there's probably 4 inches of snow outside that's fallen overnight. So
it's always the good fun, that, right? Yeah, but I think you're right. Our genuine best wishes to all those involved in education from the top to the bottom. And we hope for a much brighter future and a better 2021.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you in 2021, all being well.